Eleanor Sinclair had spent her entire life inside a gilded cage, a place where everything was flawless, yet she was shackled by the invisible chains of duty and purity. As the only daughter of Senator Alexander Sinclair, she had been raised to be a perfect lady, a pristine pearl, carefully preserved until the day she would become a bargaining chip in a marriage of power and advantage. At 23, Eleanor had never been kissed, never felt the warmth of a lover's touch, never even dreamed of freedom. Her life had been meticulously planned, every step dictated by her father's ambitions, and she had always obeyed. Until that day. Senator Sinclair entered her room, his face pale, his eyes heavy with dread. "You're getting married, Eleanor. We have no choice." Her stomach twisted. Married? She looked at her father, waiting for an explanation, but deep down she already knew. His political empire had crumbled, his reputation lay in ruins, and now she was the last asset he could trade. The man he had chosen for her was not a noble gentleman nor a stranger, but Leon Hawthorne, a ruthless businessman, a man who could make the world bow at his feet with power and wealth. And in that moment, Eleanor knew her life would never be her own again. Eleanor sat motionless, her wide eyes staring ahead, yet inside she felt nothing but a hollow emptiness. Her father's words echoed in her mind, each syllable carving cold, merciless cuts into her soul. Marriage. She should have fought back, should have screamed, should have begged her father not to do this. But his eyes, heavy with defeat, told her everything. This was not a choice. This was a sentence already written. Her father had lost everything. His political allies had turned their backs, his name was tainted, and debts loomed over him like a guillotine. He needed a way out. And that way out was her. Leon Hawthorne has agreed. His voice was hollow, as if even he couldn't believe the words he was saying. Eleanor had heard of the man. A dangerous man. Someone who possessed the very things the world craved: money, power, and merciless ambition. Leon Hawthorne was no charming aristocrat. He was a businessman, a predator in the corporate world, a man who never took no for an answer, a man feared even by those who ruled the country. She had seen him once, on the cover of a financial magazine. Dark, piercing eyes, a sharp, commanding face. A man who didn't just own companies, he owned people as if they were commodities to be traded. And now she was the commodity. "The wedding is set for this weekend," her father murmured, avoiding her gaze. A wedding, a transaction, a contract signed in cold black ink. And in just a few days, Eleanor Sinclair would cease to exist. She would become Mrs. Leon Hawthorne. Eleanor's wedding felt like a sentence being passed down. There were no flowers, no laughter, no heartfelt blessings, only a cold transaction signed between two men, one desperate and one in control. She wore a dress she did not choose, spoke vows she did not believe, and signed her name on a piece of paper that sealed her fate forever. There was no celebration, no honeymoon, only a sleek black car waiting to take her away, straight to Leon Hawthorne's estate. The towering structure of glass and stone loomed under the night sky, as cold and unyielding as the man waiting for her inside. The door shut behind her. The driver led her to the master bedroom, a vast, dark space where the bed stood like an altar for sacrifice. Her breath hitched as she heard the door open behind her. Leon Hawthorne stepped inside, shrugging off his jacket, loosening his tie. His gaze was dark, intense, trailing down her form, quiet possession flashing behind those steel-like eyes. "Did you really think you'd sleep alone tonight?" His voice was low, edged with danger, cutting through the silence like a blade. Eleanor instinctively stepped back, but her spine met the cold, unyielding wall. Leon moved forward, slow and deliberate, like a predator, toying with its prey. "You're my wife, Eleanor." His head tilted slightly, eyes sharp and calculating. "And I always take what's mine." Her heartbeat pounded against her ribs. There was no escape. And tonight, this beast would take the last piece of her she had left. Morning light seeped through the thick curtains, casting a soft glow over Eleanor's bare skin. She lay motionless among the tangled sheets, her body exhausted, aching, but what unsettled her most was the emptiness settling deep inside her. The remnants of last night clung to her, his scent on her skin, his warmth lingering on the pillow, the ghost of his hands tracing every inch of her body. Leon Hawthorne was no longer there, yet he was everywhere. His presence filled the room like an invisible chain wrapping around her. Eleanor clutched the sheets closer, trying to still the tremors running through her. She should hate him, she should despise him. But what terrified her most was herself. She hadn't fought him, she hadn't pushed him away, and worst of all, she had responded. The door swung open. Leon entered, his hair damp from a shower, the crisp black shirt hanging open at the top, exposing the hard lines of his chest. His gaze found hers, a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips, as if he could read every thought racing through her mind. "Did you sleep well?" His voice was low, teasing. Eleanor gripped the sheets tighter. "You forced me." Leon chuckled, a dark, knowing sound. He moved closer, slow, deliberate, watching her the way a predator watches its prey. "Forced?" he repeated, leaning down, his face now just inches from hers. "Don't lie to me, Eleanor. You moaned under me, welcomed me." His voice dropped to a whisper. "More than once." Her breath hitched. She wanted to deny it, wanted to push him away. But the most terrifying truth of all was that she couldn't. The days that followed passed in a reality Eleanor had never imagined. Leon was not just the man who had taken her on their wedding night, but also the man who surrounded her with a terrifying kind of tenderness. He never let her out of his reach, not as a tyrant, but as a man who was afraid of losing the woman he loved. His touch was no longer about possession, but something far more dangerous, as if without her, he wouldn't know how to breathe. His arms pulled her close every night, holding her as if she was the only thing anchoring him to this world. And Eleanor could no longer deny that she felt it too. It was in the way he placed a cup of tea exactly the way she liked it every morning. Every morning, when she woke, breakfast was already waiting, not prepared by the servants, but by his own hands. A cup of tea, brewed just the way she liked, toast perfectly crisp, fruit sliced with meticulous care, as if he had memorized her preferences long ago. "You made this yourself?" she asked one morning, surprised as she stared at the plate in front of her. Leon simply shrugged, pride flickering in his dark eyes. "You're my wife. Who else would take better care of you?" He never needed to say, "I love you," because it was there in every gesture. When she walked through the garden, he watched from a distance, always ready to shield her when the wind picked up. When she was tired, he pulled her into his lap, massaging her feet, pressing a silent kiss against her forehead. Eleanor had once thought Leon only knew how to take, but the night she fell ill, he stayed awake beside her, pressing cool cloths to her burning skin, holding her as if her smallest pain could destroy him. She should hate him, she should want to run. But as she lay in his arms during the long nights, Eleanor knew there was no going back. Leon Hawthorne had claimed her body that first night. But the most terrifying thing of all was that he was slowly claiming her heart as well. That morning, Eleanor had barely taken a sip of her tea when the dining room doors swung open. The butler entered, his face grave. "Sir, there's a call. Your lawyer says it's urgent." Leon set his coffee down, eyes darkening as he reached for the phone. Eleanor could feel the tension rolling off him in waves. She couldn't hear the full conversation, but the clipped words she caught sent a chill through her. "What the hell is he doing?" His voice turned sharp. "No, absolutely not." When the call ended, he tossed the phone onto the table, his expression unreadable. "Your father wants you back." Eleanor froze. "Isn't our contract enough to keep me here?" Her voice was quiet, but the worry was evident. Leon let out a cold laugh. "Sinclair thinks he can use lawyers to take you from me. He forgets. You're not his anymore." Before she could respond, he stood and pulled her with him. "We're going to see him, now." The glass skyscraper where her father waited loomed over them, imposing and sterile. Inside the boardroom, Senator Alexander Sinclair rose to his feet the moment they entered. He looked thinner than before, but his gaze was still sharp, still commanding. "Eleanor, you don't have to endure this. Come home with me." Leon's grip on her waist tightened, his voice cold as steel. "She's not going anywhere." Her father met Leon's gaze head on. "This contract can be undone. I will fight until it is." Leon only smirked, tugging Eleanor closer. "She's not some possession for you to reclaim." Then he bent down, murmuring into her ear, "Tell him, Eleanor." She took a deep breath. Under her father's expectant stare, she spoke slowly but firmly. "Enough." Both men turned to look at her, but she didn't meet their eyes. She focused only on her own breathing, her own decision. She turned to her father, her voice calm but firm. "You can't use me as a trade anymore." Then she faced Leon, pain flickering in her gaze but no longer fear. "And neither can you." Silence filled the room. Eleanor turned away, stepping toward the door. No one stopped her. And for the first time in a long while, she felt free. Leon had searched everywhere. He knew Eleanor couldn't have gone too far. Then he remembered. One evening, she had once told him about a place she always went when she felt lost. A lavender field just outside the city. When he arrived, the world felt different. The golden hues of the setting sun bathed the lavender field in a surreal glow, but his eyes found only her. Standing there, lost in thought, the breeze lifting strands of her hair, Eleanor looked almost untouchable. Like a dream he was afraid to wake from. She was still, her gaze lost in the horizon. The wind played with her hair, and in that moment, Leon realized she had never looked more breathtaking. He stepped closer but said nothing. Eleanor knew he was there. She didn't turn around, only murmured, "Why did you come looking for me?" Leon exhaled. "Because you're not a transaction, Eleanor." His voice was low, unsteady. "You are the one thing I can't afford to lose." She let out a soft chuckle, not mocking but thoughtful. She finally turned to face him, her eyes holding a gentleness he had never seen before. "Then prove it, Leon." Leon drove Eleanor home in silence. The entire way back, she said nothing, only gazing out the window, as if still lost in the scent of lavender. He didn't push her to speak. He was afraid that if he did, she would slip away again. When the car stopped in front of the estate, Eleanor stepped out, but instead of heading inside, she hesitated at the entrance. "Do you think bringing me back means you get to keep me?" Her voice was soft, almost distant. Leon's fists clenched. He knew that if he didn't act now, he would lose her. Without hesitation, he dropped to his knees right there, on the doorstep of their home, at her feet. Eleanor froze. "Don't leave." His voice was low, raw with desperation. "I don't know how to love you the way you deserve, but I know I can't exist without you." The man who had always stood above everyone else, the man who had never bowed to anyone, was now on his knees before her, as if losing her meant losing everything. Eleanor looked down at him, meeting his pleading gaze, but she didn't answer right away. She had once been controlled, once been forced to stay, but this time she wanted him to understand that love was not about possession. She knelt down beside him, her fingers brushing against his face, her voice gentle but firm. "If you truly want me, Leon, then prove it. Not with words, not with possession, but with the way you choose to love me." As she spoke, something inside her shifted. She had spent so long fearing him, fighting him, but now, for the first time, she saw a man, not a monster. A man trembling at the edge of losing her. The next morning, the estate gates swung open and a fleet of black cars pulled into the driveway. Her father's lawyers had arrived. Eleanor stood by the window, watching as they stepped out, men in dark suits carrying documents, symbols of her father's power. Leon stood beside her, his body tense, his gaze dark and unreadable. "He really thinks he can take you from me?" His voice was low, dangerously cold. Eleanor said nothing. Instead, she gently placed her hand on his arm, a silent reassurance. Then she stepped outside. Her father's lawyers were waiting, stiff and formal. "Eleanor, come with us. This contract can be undone. Your father has arranged everything to bring you home." She looked at them, then back at Leon, the man who had once forced her into his world, yet now stood waiting, uncertain, afraid. Eleanor took a slow, deep breath before stepping beside Leon. She met the lawyer's eyes, her voice calm, yet resolute. "I choose to stay." Silence. The lawyers exchanged glances, then turned and left without another word. The estate gates closed behind them. Leon didn't wait. He pulled Eleanor into his arms, kissing her, not like a man claiming possession, but like a man who had fallen irrevocably in love. They were no longer hunter and prey. They were two souls melting into each other with a love that was finally real. 1 month later, Eleanor was sitting in the small garden behind the estate when a car pulled up at the gate. She lifted her head, her heart tightening as she saw her father step out. He looked older. His hair had more gray. His eyes no longer held the pride they once did. Instead, there was only deep regret. She stood, waiting as he approached. "Eleanor," his voice wavered, "I was wrong." She didn't speak, allowing him to continue. "I treated you like a pawn. I forced you into this marriage without thinking about your happiness. But do you know," he took a shaky breath, "for the past month, I've wondered if I even deserve to call myself your father anymore." Tears welled in her eyes, but she simply smiled and stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him. "You will always be my father," she whispered, "and you didn't condemn me to misery. I found someone who cherishes me, who loves me in ways I never expected." For a moment, Senator Sinclair stiffened. Then, slowly, he embraced his daughter for the first time in years. From that day on, things got better. Eleanor and Leon lived in a world filled with love. Leon worshiping her with the kind of devotion she had once feared, now embraced. 3 years later, the lavender fields stretched endlessly under the golden hues of the setting sun. Eleanor stood there, her hand intertwined with Leon's, both watching as two small figures ran through the sea of flowers. Their twin children, a boy and a girl, giggled as they chased butterflies, their laughter ringing like the sweetest melody. Eleanor leaned her head against Leon's shoulder, feeling his arms tighten protectively around her. "Are you happy?" he murmured. She smiled, her gaze still locked on their children. "I've never been happier." The soft breeze carried the scent of lavender, mingling with the laughter of their little ones. From an unwanted marriage, from a relationship once built on obsession and control, they had found something real, love, unwavering and true. And this was the happiest ending they could have ever wished for.